Welcome to part 12 of Rishi the Movie, as we continue to dissect the statements Patton West made while being deposed by my lawyer in 2009. And what a perplexing story it is. In 2007, the planetary regent was a billionaire, so she told the court. In 2009, apparently she's living in a caravan in Reynolds' back garden. Then, shortly after giving these statements, she moves down to Arizona and is living in a mansion again. So, big page 13, little page top left, page 46. When did it cease to exist? That's the global guardianship. Patton West says years ago. She had big ideas, that she was the new rising star of altruism or whatever, and never did any fundraising, never stacked her numbers, never pitched it in any sort of legitimate way, and basically racked up a lot of bills and then blew it. That is a massive, massive lie. What Patton West is doing again is portraying her narcissistic, delusional visions of grandeur onto Dr. Cole. And that's what she does with everybody. Let me make this absolutely clear. Patton West comes up with these great big save the planet schemes, like the one I was involved with, which are just a track to run on while she milks the wealthy people. She brainwashes and conditions until there's nothing left. And that's exactly what happened to Dr. Cole. Again, Patton West decides on these projects, finds people to support them. Many of them have to be brainwashed and conditioned, sucks the life out of them, and then discards them, like used Kleenex. Now, Patton West is doing what Patton West does best, which is lie. The idea that Cole was running the show and that Patton West was out on the periphery as a kind of advisor, and then down further she says, I wrote to them lots of letters. So these replies to these questions sounds exactly like replies she gave earlier on in this session. Bottom left, little page 47. She gets down to me, without me, they didn't really have any viability at all, which I think was perhaps a sore discovery on Mr. Watson's case. I was the workhorse of that whole organization, and it was formed only to sponsor my work. And so once I resigned, they had no real viability. Yes, the senior members of Patton West cult in particular were not only supporting her work, two of them financially, Williams and Coffin, but they had the inside view on what her work really was: organized crime, racketeering, backed up by terrorism and murder, if necessary. So Patton West ran a cult, and everybody underneath it who was inside the cult did exactly what she said. The idea that somehow they're over there committing her crimes for her and she's not involved. Well, look, I guess we're blessed with hindsight now. We're in 2026 and we can look back and see what happened after she gave these statements, which was move down to Arizona and do it all over again, just as she did in Montana, just as she did in New Mexico before that. So here is Patton West's tried and tested business model. Set yourself up as a guru, make idiotic claims about your powers, like you're holding open the gates of time and you got your doctorates from the Christ in person. Enough of the sheeple will come along. And Dr. Cole came along and she was roped into some front company for organized crime and money laundering that Patton West had going. and basically agreed to give up 66% of her income to fund it. But like all the other projects, they never come to fruition. Now, Patton West ends up in court spewing these lies about coal, having successfully got away with violently beating her to coerce her to give up her net worth, which included signing over her own home to Patton West. It included cashing in her IRA to give to Patton West, and worse still, she borrowed $50,000 from her aunt to give to Patton West. And they say crime doesn't pay anymore. Patton West must have been desperate for Cole's money, because another employee overheard Patton West saying that she didn't care if she killed Cole because as an enlightened being, she had no ego, so could spend her life in prison as easily as in a $6 million home. Of course, Patton West doesn't understand, because she's not enlightened, that enlightened people don't go around killing other people. They cherish life. But Patton West wouldn't know that, would she? At the top of Carlida's statement, Dr. West was verbally abusive daily with Dr. Cole, her disciple in quotes, her victim. She attributed it to the law of severity required for spiritual enlightenment. Sometime between Jan and March 2006, I overheard Devra tell Pat that she would take a hammer and break every bone in her hands. Does this sound like a guru or a career criminal, a psychopath masquerading as a guru? Well, it works. She's gotten away with it for about 35 years, since 1991, when she suddenly decided she was an ascended master, and anybody not agreeing to that was messing with the energies. This is what Patton West means by conscious fiscal mastery. Patton West, page 47, little page, bottom left, page 47. Patton West goes on about, without me, they didn't really have any viability at all, which I think was perhaps a sore discovery on Mr. Watson's case. I don't know what she meant by that remark. She probably thought I was some corporate raider that was after her money. Again, she portrays her crimes onto her victims. So she thinks I'm some kind of financial predator when she is the predator. Remember, it doesn't matter what is actually true. And in the next breath, she's saying she wasn't involved, she was out on the periphery, she had no control over it. So make your mind up. Are you the workhorse or are you the controller? We all know the answer to that. Bottom of page 47, she starts to talk about Sacred Environments LLC. I would say that the names of the corporations she's referring to are ones I set up at her direction in the first 6 months of 2002. And as you'll know, having got rid of me and telling the courts and everybody else there was never any involvement between us, she then runs with it. And of course, Coffin, instead of putting $1 million in, because I'm no longer there, puts in 730,000 or whatever. Doesn't look suspicious, does it? So to recap, Patton West ropes me into her scheme about making banking more altruistic, and that was the idea behind the Millennium Mind and all the corporations she wanted to set up. But it was just a track to run on to keep me there so she could work on me and try to break me and have me submit to her will like all her other drones have done. So commits the crime, it goes public, she's found guilty, then she denies it publicly. That would be contempt of court anywhere else but out in the West. Ditto with the assault on coal. When it's announced in the papers, she puts up a post and denies it. This is the pattern, pun intended. Hindsight is a wonderful thing. We can look back and we can see everything that happened, and that's what I'm doing, joining the dots for the FBI and everybody else. Top right, page 48 and page 49, she gets on to Reynolds again. And, it's Reynolds' business, the property business. Now, in the last 2 pages, top right and bottom, basically she's talking about Reynolds owning the property company. And this is great from my perspective because, hell, if Reynolds is announcing my murder in a campaign of terrorism, having him monetarily involved and connected to all of Patton West schemes is music to my ears. Okay, on with Patton West deposition, big page 14, little page 50, top left. Question, would Mr. Reynolds have been involved with the website? And here she goes again, basically projecting her crimes onto those she regards as being beneath her. Well, he tried to oversee it somewhat. I can't say he did. I was not particularly happy with anything that any of them created regarding that website. But the truth of the matter is that Patton West, a self-admitted control freak, oversaw every single aspect of that website. The colors, her own fashion statements, the whole 9 yards. It was all orchestrated by her, as were all of her crimes orchestrated by her, not by those beneath her that when she goes to court, she has a whole group of people she can project blame onto. Lawyer asks about her employment going forward. Get down to her answer. Well, over the years, we'd hoped to launch something that was viable and legitimate, but our efforts to get Watson's websites down, which my credibility is very dependent upon, have not been successful. There we go again. But it was I, John Watson, who was trying to make her operation viable and legal. And as soon as I approached her to do that, I got constructively dismissed. And the rest, as they say, is history. Yes, her credibility was dependent on the public and everybody else not having access to the truth. Why else would she launch a campaign of terrorism against me and my family? And why would she try to murder me twice? The terrorism is ongoing, by the way, as I'm speaking into this microphone. She goes on, all the US servers shut him down, but then he will go to some obscure place in the United Arab Emirates or something like that. So basically, he destroyed my representation and severed my capacity to have a livelihood. It's a kind of ironic if you really think about it. Yes, so all of her criminal acts up to that point and her appearances in court, which probably went into the tens, newspaper articles about her activities in Montana, none of that had anything to do with destroying her reputation. All I did was talk the truth. And of course, for somebody like Patton West, the truth is bad for business. So bad, it justifies terrorism and murder. Or it does in the mind of somebody who wants us to believe she has been preparing to lead humanity, guide humanity for thousands of years. And here she is. What a wonderful job she's done. Not. This is the person who wants us to believe she's holding open the gates of time. This is the person who wants us to believe that the Christ gave her 2 doctorates in person. First of all, my websites were never in the US, and I don't believe the lies you just said about the US service shutting my websites down, because if they had, where would the problem be for Patton West? She can't have it both ways. Well, she thinks she can. On the one hand, I'm destroying her credibility. On the other hand, all the websites were unavailable in the US because servers shut me down. Again, God, liars, liars. And at the bottom of that little page 50, she says it's kind of ironic if you really think about it that I've shut her livelihood down. Look at the evidence and the data that's available in the form of audio statements and written statements. See how many marriages this woman has destroyed in divide and conquer, get rid of the husband, take over the wife, suck all the wealth out of the wife. Terrorism for 35 years against scores or hundreds of victims. I've been on the receiving end of it for 19 years, and I know others who've been on the receiving end of it. Then there's this mincing machine she has where she invites employment from all over the US at very good wages, and when they arrive, they're given a 20% pay cut and given the choice to join her cult or turn around and go home. Yeah, so I find it kind of ironic that she should make that play, but then she doesn't regard anything as off limits. So before I commence showing you details of the massive fraud against scores of employees, let's just hear from Patton West again.
It doesn't matter what is actually true.
Because I've watched you treat other people, sometimes in a very, very bad way. You dispose of them like Kleenex.
That's right.
You treat them
Absolutely.
terribly.
I've disposed of a lot of people of late. It's true. That all you want is your money.
I want to be paid for the
And that's-
time that I work. That's it. That's the
You
end.
just want to be paid.
That's it. That's
Even
it.
though there was no agreement, nothing in writing, nothing.
Oh, there were agreements, Devra, between you and I, but they turned out not to be worth anything.
That's right. They turned out not to be
That's
worth
right.
anything at all.
So I want the viewer, listener, to understand the enormity of what's going on. You've seen how Patton West posts on her websites using religious freedom laws, basically lies and propaganda about her being able to deliver enlightenment for a large fee. This attracts a lot of spiritual seekers. They come in as students, then there are the employees. She basically breaks all sorts of employment laws using violence, coercion, even terrorism to extract money and or obedience from those students and employees. But then you have the massive crimes against the employees to start with. That is, they're promised jobs that aren't available. She can't afford them. I mean, at the time of posting some of these ads, she was close to bankruptcy or millions in debt with a lien against her for employment insurance. Yet she keeps posting these ads with the help of Williams, and they come through, they go through the mincer, and they get spat out the other end. And those that go public, like myself, are targeted for murder, like Joseph Costantino, who had the gall to take it to the Employment Insurance Tribunal because he was owed 20 grand. He settled for 10 and then died shortly afterwards. Like Lisa Swidler, she saw Mike Hedringson being defrauded out of 200K, Dave Kirshner 30K, Marion Cantwell kidnapped, held captive and relieved of tens of thousands of dollars. So tried to leave the cult, and I believe she was going to the police, died suddenly. Then there are lots of other scams she's running at the same time, like GoFundMe for her dental fees. I mean, it's endless. How she's remained at large this long, I have no idea. So, bottom of little page 50, top of little page 51. So there's no personal staff positions currently filled. Is that correct? Absolutely none, she says. Were they ever filled? Meaning what? Well, in March of '09, for example, there was an estate home manager position posted, never filled. And again, if you monitor that website, you will see the stuff has been on there for years. Yes, it has been on there for years because it's one of the main ways she generates income, by screwing over people who come to work for her, advertising positions that don't exist and she can't afford to pay for. Hence, they take a pay cut on day one and they miss a month's pay, saver for the master teacher, they call it in the cult. And then often paychecks just don't get paid because there's no money in the bank. And on top of that, then the employees and students, if they're around, are asked to pay for a dry cleaning and other bills. Let's hear from some of Patton West's ex-employees in Montana. That would be Kathleen Francisco, Diane Stoner, and Cindy Beeman.
Oh yeah, I used my car extensively. I wrote my own personal checks because there was never any checks. Cheryl O'Brien would say, "Oh, I'm leaving, I'll leave you a check. Just write one of your checks." I had checks bounce because their checks to me would not be good. Therefore, it cost my account
Money.
money. Yeah, I'm going after that also. My bank fees and the use of my car.
They wouldn't give you mileage or reimburse for gas.
They never reimbursed my gas. They refused to pay my gas and my mileage.
They asked you to go up to Shambhala.
Yeah, I went up to Shambhala on my own day off.
Okay.
Did not pay my time, did not pay my mileage.
And she wanted you to go and live up there, apparently, with her?
Yes, she stated in front of the real estate agent and Esther Michaels that she would pay for my moving expenses for me to live there and give me a substantial raise to move up.
What about your children?
My feeling was that she did not want me to bring my children.
So you'd effectively leave your children somewhere.
Right. I had to make up my mind on what I was going to do about my children, is what she told me.
Wow.
Yeah. So she's a very odd and sick woman.
Did you always get paid on time?
I always got paid on time. Whether the checks were good were a whole nother issue. The funds were not always available in the account, and it's gotten worse.
All right. Whilst funds were not available to you and maybe other employees, I know from my time there that people had to wait 2 or 3 weeks in some cases. What about Devra West's lifestyle in the house?
Oh, she lived very extravagantly. Yeah, she ate only gourmet food, expensive food, which had to be hand selected. An extensive amount of wine, which she consumed 1 to 2 bottles a day on a daily basis, every day.
And is your experience of this that this was all paid by the charity?
Yes.
Yeah.
She stated many times that this is the way the masters wanted her to live.
Okay.
And that she deserved to live amongst beautiful things.
Okay. So you were the house manager that was trying to coordinate the house all the time and keep her in the fashion she'd become accustomed to.
Yes. My job was to keep Devra happy. If Devra wasn't happy, nobody was happy. Oh yeah, yeah. I would come to work and see evidence of fits of rage of Devra during the night, whether she was fighting with people maybe on the phone or Anandra or Jack at night or whoever else was a house guest at the time. Her closet could be ripped apart. Things were thrown against the wall in her room, broken glasses, just things in disarray. I came to work one time and saw evidence of maybe Devra had fell against something. Yeah, she had a definite gash on the side of her face. Were you there at that time? Yeah, and she said that she had slipped and then she couldn't remember. And me and Diane and myself mostly made the judgment that she had been drinking and had fallen probably down the stairs.
Wow.
Because of the amount of drinking and not sleeping can wear on one's mental
That'll do it.
capability.
Yeah.
But yeah, she...
Esther Michaels, you were kind enough to share that phone message that was recorded on your cell phone. I understand that she's called you once or twice since to try and hook you back in.
Yes.
And you're basically playing the game until you get your paycheck, because I understand you're owed $700 or $800, and hope to get it at the end of this week?
Thursday.
Thursday.
Which is the normal payday, and that's when they have to pay me. I am holding a receipt for Devra's dry cleaning. She's got about 15 items of clothes in the dry cleaners, and it's all in my name. And I'm holding on to that, and they know it until I get my check. She's not going to get her dry cleaning.
Okay. Were you in any way involved with Cindy leaving? I know she ended up kind of resigning, giving her mother as an excuse.
Yeah.
But I understand from the statement she gave me, it was intolerable.
It was. And she was looking for work. That's one of the things we had our secret, conversations about, was we were both looking for work quietly, desperately trying to get out of there. And it just got to a point where once I had deflected them by saying, I surrender, you're right, I'm a victim, I told Cindy to do the same thing. And so she started to, I said, you need to go back now and make excuses for the way you were, just to try to reflect.
Play the game.
Yeah, you've got to play the game until we get out of here. Because otherwise, if we get them off our back, at least we can go to work each day and not want to throw up. And so, we were quietly planning and plotting and trying to get out of there. Well,
Really?
This is what really makes me sick, is that she claims that she is channeling Christ's teachings. And I've seen it in emails and letters that she's written to her followers. She has said that if you don't believe me in what I'm telling you about Shambhala, because a lot of people questioned her about that move. They thought it was a bad idea.
Yes.
And she wrote them and said, if you question me, you question Christ. If you don't believe me, you don't believe Christ. And to me, that is really low.
Extreme.
Very extreme.
I would add that shortly after I published these audio statements from Diane, who had already left the cult and moved back to New York, shortly after I put these audio statements up on the web, Diane suddenly had a freak accident, fell over and damaged her hip, and I believe ended up in hospital. Probably a coincidence. Like after I posted the statement from Tanya Hurley up on the website, that was a written statement. More or less immediately afterwards, Tanya ended up in hospital with a kidney infection or something like that. Probably just another coincidence, eh? But FBI, police, state governments, I would get your detectives to interview all of these people and see how many of them who maybe said something they shouldn't or did something they shouldn't also suddenly had coincidences like Diane Stoner and Tanya Hurley, myself and many others. It's terrorism. My point here is that they have been up for years because it is financially beneficial for Patton West to leave them up. And this meeting took place in, I think, October 2009. And immediately after that, in 2010, she moved down to Arizona with Williams and Reynolds in attendance. And lo and behold, on the screen now, advertisements for jobs in Sedona. Same strategy, tried and tested part of her business model over decades. So, yeah, lies, more lies, 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 lies at a deposition. And the thing that makes me angry is that she's obviously been lying to the police, to the courts, to whoever for 3.5 decades, and nobody calls her on it. So why would she not lie when going to the police or the courts or whatever? Nobody ever does anything about it. Until now. So she may not have had any job offers available on the day she was asked the question by my lawyer, but as soon as she got down to Arizona, she did the same thing again because it's an important part of her business model. It generates a lot of cash, and the authorities, don't do anything, so why should she stop? Bottom of little page 51, my lawyer asks her about the bounced check for $6 million. And Mr. Bartlett says he thinks it's irrelevant and instructs his client not to testify. Okay, let's go to big page 15, top left, little page 54. My lawyer asks if she's provided financially for her children. And she answers, oh, absolutely. They're all interested in me is how much money I can give them. Pretty typical that way. Well, that's an interesting observation. I know she's lying through her teeth, but the point is her children knew what she was doing. I mean, she has this idiot posting on her website somewhere that she's handing over the reins to her daughter, or the mantle, or whatever it is. If I can find the image, I'll put it up. And of course, the son, Chris Hayward, well, the apple didn't fall far from the tree with that one. Patton West, I think she's taking the mickey or taking the piss, whatever you want. Question, but I think after hearing you testify today, it's no longer the case that you're able to provide financial aid to them. Oh, I still give them small amounts of money regularly whenever I can. Lawyer, where are you getting money from to give to your children? Answer, once again, I receive cash from Jeff and Mr. Williams. That's Jeff Reynolds. Or Jeff provides me with what is needed. They know my children. They love my children. If they need a few $100, they're happy to provide it. Yeah, that money man came in useful, didn't he? Bottom page left, little page 55, that is. Incidentals, $100 here and there. Yes, I apologize, we're talking at the same time again. So the lawyer's apologizing to the wannabe planetary regent because she talks over everybody, and I'm amazed she hasn't done it more often during this interview. Patton West continues to play this game where she's acting dumb, stupid, needs the question clarifying. Since Mr. Watson's case, yes, it goes back to June of 2003. Has she given any gifts then? Does it mean charitable contributions? Blah, blah, blah. She answers Rotary Club, Montana Land Reliance. I gave some money to Big Fork Elementary School, probably $10 or something when she was passing. Top right, page 56, more of the same. The lawyer's trying to find out when she last gave gifts of substance. Any gifts in the last year? No. 2 years? No. 3 years? Probably not. I don't think so. I believe you told me that the property in Denver or Colorado was sold, correct? Have there been any other properties transferred? No. And who would have this information about the Colorado transfer? She responds, yes, her son would know all about that. But I imagine Jeff Reynolds was overseeing anything. You know, I come from a generation where the men handled the money. Oh, she really is playing with my lawyer. I mean, just the gall of it. She just believes she will never be called to account, so she doesn't take anything seriously. Nevertheless, Patton West continues to try to distance herself from all matters financial and continues basically to prepare the ground for Reynolds having to take responsibility for it all. Fortunately for Reynolds, all the evidence we've compiled means that that is not going to happen. But that's not to say Reynolds isn't going to jail. He may not have been directly responsible. He may have been obviously taking his orders from Patton West. But he carried out those orders, however illegal or immoral. Bottom right, little page 57. So Jeff Reynolds would have information about the property transfer. Patton West answers correct. Right, what do we got to? Bottom right, page 57. Do you have any jewelry that is worth a substantial amount? Answer, no, a handful. Did you ever have at one time? Oh yes, I certainly did at one time. Ever had a substantial amount of emeralds? No, I'm sorry. I mean, what can I say? I think Mr. Watson is really off his rocker. Yes, the lawyer's answering the question because one of the statements from one of her students stated that she overheard Patton West bragging that she didn't need bank accounts because she put all of her wealth into jewelry, precious metals, etc. And comments that at the time the student was listening, Patton West was wearing an emerald necklace that she estimated was worth $250,000. Again, lies. You know, when she's lying, her lips are moving. Moving on to big page 16, top left, little page 58. Did you ever receive a watch from Corin Coffin? Answers, yes, I received a gorgeous Rolex from Corin Coffin. Where is that today? It was stolen. When was it stolen? It was stolen when I moved into the Bayview home, and I suspected that one of the young kids that were working for the moving company had stolen it, but I didn't really discover it until several months after the moving company had been in the home, so I never did anything about it. It wasn't insured? No. When did you move to the Bayview home again? Again, a total pack of lies. Basically, Patton West, after answering all of these questions from my lawyer in October 2009, moved down with the cult. That would be Williams and Reynolds, in principle, probably the family as well, to Arizona. And one of the scams she put up, there are like 5 or 6 running all the time at once, was the GoFundMe scam for her dental fees or something. Now, in the photograph above, you can see that Patton West is wearing a watch on her left hand. That's the Rolex that Corin Coffin gave her. So it was lost and stolen, and I guess as soon as she moved down to Arizona, somebody found it, got Interpol to do a search of the US and Europe to see where she was, found her and handed over her long-lost watch. That's one possible theory. The other is that she just lies through her teeth because she knows nobody's going to call her out on it. And probably it was at home or in Reynolds' caravan or wherever. Bottom left, little page 59. Patton West answers no to everything. I've got no assets. What she's trying to convince me and the lawyer of, it's not worth flogging a dead horse. Well, we'll see how the FBI do. Halfway down, she makes this comment, sorry, the milk cow is dead. Well, I don't know who she's referring to as the cow, but she was milking just about everybody that came into her presence. But again, whether it's narcissism or just a psychotic mindset, she projects all of her crimes and her actions onto her victims. So on it goes. Patton West hasn't any assets, just a suitcase or two with clothes in it. Yeah, people lend me cars. I don't have a car. You know, maybe an RV to live in. Oh my God. Anyway, question, top right, little page 60. Have you ever identified that you had 110,000 in jewelry on any loan applications? Answer. I personally have never done that. I do not know that the non-profit very much tried to use my assets to get loans for themselves at one point in time, but I could easily have had that much in jewelry years ago. Lies, lies, lies. Yes, she had all that jewelry, and yes, she probably had it insured. But again, she's saying that the non-profit, that's the people, well, the latest batch is Reynolds, Williams, and all the other idiots that decided to become senior members of her cult. Again, she's projecting her crimes onto them. She's kind of acknowledging sideways that she may have had that jewelry and it was insured, but somehow the members she chose to run her organization, in other words, the droids in her cult that do as she said, she's suggesting now that they kind of got her assets and used those to jack up loans. Again, lies, 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 lies. Now, why don't we just remind ourselves of lies, similar lies to these that she was telling my lawyer in October 2009 that she told in court on July 12, 2007. She's asked, look up on the screen now, there's a copy of an excerpt from the transcript. What is the Circle of Divine Unity? It was an organization that was founded in the early 90s by the non-profit that's sponsored by my work from time to time. That sponsored my work from time to time. Well, the truth of that is she formed the non-profit. She had her minions actually do the paperwork and everything, but she formed it. And what did it do? What was its purpose? Answer, here we go. Well, they were supposed to have sponsored the work, which I'm sorry to say did not do such a great job of it. Okay, were you a director of that organization? I served on their board of directors for some period of time, I think 5 years or so. So that was what was said in October 2009. Again, look at it, I served on their board of directors, when in fact this was her container, her front company to process the funds from organized crime, money laundering, funds from extortion, theft, fraud, terrorism, you name it. She formed it. She populated it with her own yes men, like Coffin, Williams, Reynolds, They're all disposable, like Kleenex. And how many waves of these disposable, useful idiots have come and gone over the last 35 years? Okay, bottom of page 24, it's up on the screen now. Lawyer says, this is July 12, 2007. You've got a number of civil lawsuits pending against you right now, don't you? She says, top of page 25, they move out of a non-profit that I had been a funder for some years. The non-profit I resigned from some 5 years ago. I funded them to the tune of probably over $20 million in the course of some 15 years. They are presently financially insolvent because the individuals cannot extract their, alleged funds from the non-profit. They have gone after me because I'm the one who has the funds. Devra West never put $20,000 into that non-profit, let alone $20 million over the course of 15 years. I expect that over the course of 15 years, she's extracted at least $20 million. Now, I'm not saying all of that has come from robbing, defrauding, extorting money from students and employees. What I'm suggesting is that the framework, the non-profit, whilst it feeds her pocket money and grocery expenses from the cult, the employees and students, but the big money comes from individual big hits. The most recent one that I'm aware of is Patton West defrauding the US government out of $150,000 or $500,000, whatever it is, of SBA COVID disaster loans. Then there's Lalita Jordan. Patton West managed to manipulate Lalita Jordan into giving her the coordinates of her mother's trust fund. Her mother was ill, infirm, in a care home, and the money in that trust fund was paying for Lolita's mother's monthly fees. Patton West emptied that trust fund once she gained control of it, putting Lolita's mother out on the street. I don't know how much it was. Then there's Dr. Cole, that's another one. God knows what she got from Cole. I'd say around $1 million net, maybe slightly less. Cole had to sign over a home worth $750,000, but I understand there was a mortgage on it. Cole gave all the cash she had available and cashed out her IRA and borrowed $50,000 from her aunt, which of course she couldn't pay back because she was close to bankrupt at the time. And then we have the interviewing wealthy people at private sessions, identifying who has money, making them ill, then charging them for the cure. On the screen now, who wants another divine grace healing? That's what it's all about. Then you have this raft of crimes, mainly financial in nature, which are up on the screen now, which we know happened in New Mexico between 91 and 95, because she was chased out of that state at the point of a gun by one victim. And Montana, most of them, and there's a whole list of crimes that she committed once she moved down to Arizona in 2010. So it's just a big criminal business model. And Coffin has been associated and funding it for 30 years. Williams for over 2 decades, funding it, marketing her to the public as an innocent guru, knowing the opposite was the case, and sending me threatening emails when I sued her for fraud. That's just not witness tampering. I wasn't a witness, I was a plaintiff. But again, that's why she's out in Montana. No crime, nothing to see here, unless of course you rob a gas station and $40 worth of gas, and they'll chase you up the road shooting guns. But murder, extortion, terrorism, no, nothing to see here. That's the experience in Montana and Arizona so far. Okay, bottom right, little page 61. Now we're getting into the artwork, the missing artwork, which I'm going to put the list of artwork pieces on the screen shortly. This was a list I drew up while I was the business manager between Jan 2002 and Jan 2006. And what I was trying to do was value the charity so that I could show prospective donors that there were some assets in the account of the charity. In other words, I wanted to stabilize everything, know who owned what and where it all was. As Elaine's email, which is up on the screen now, shows, Patton West doesn't use bank accounts. Patton West uses jewelry, precious metals, stuff she can hide away that is not in a bank, offshore bank accounts, but also artwork and valuables. So she uses donations from the public that the public think are going to these Save the World projects, and instead it's being siphoned off and put into artwork and valuables, assets, jewelry, precious metals, offshore, probably in Israel, to hide it from the IRS and the authorities. That's what's going on. Bullshit, it's utter lies, and any search will prove that in no time at all. If they ever introduce a law like perjury or lying under oath in the Western states. And here we go again. And where did that jewelry go? Some of it was stolen, and some of it was pawned or given away or sold. I sold one ring here locally. You mentioned you may have given some away. Minor items, who would you have given it to? My daughter or granddaughters type of thing. Or gifts to people that had done me favors along the line. But it wasn't because the jewelry had great value, it was because it was a sentimental value. Thank you from myself. Okay, bottom right, little page 61. Now we're getting into the artwork, the missing artwork, which I'm going to put the list of artwork pieces on the screen shortly. This was a list I drew up while I was the business manager between Jan 2002 and Jan 2006. What I was trying to do was value the charity so that I could show prospective donors that there were some assets in the account of the charity. In other words, I wanted to stabilize everything, know who owned what and where it all was. Doubtless Patton West has been hiding money throughout her criminal career, going all the way back, way past before 1991. In the 70s, 80s, she defrauded Jeremy Samuelson out of 10 grand, Satire in 91 out of 6,000. So she was probably hiding the money from the IRS, but she also knew that there was a sheriff sale coming ahead, or at least the possibility of one in the near future, and that's ended up exactly what happened. She owed past victims of crime $2 million in court fines and interest, so she was busy hiding her assets. Now, I've dealt with this 2 or 3 times before throughout this movie in separate parts, so suffice to say that Patton West stole the property from the charity, put it in a trust fund. The judge broke it out of the trust fund in 2008, and it was used to pay those victims $2 million in court fines and interest. At the same time, in 2004, after her charity was struck off, she hid all of the valuables and artwork and valuables in a lockup. And then suddenly they all appeared in Arizona in 2014 onwards, and some of it sold at auction. And of course, guess who was organizing that? Money Man, Mr. Reynolds. As Elaine's email, which is up on the screen now, shows, Patton West doesn't use bank accounts. Patton West uses jewelry, precious metals, stuff she can hide away that is not in a bank, offshore bank accounts, but also artwork and valuables. So she uses donations from the public that the public think are going to these Save the World projects, and instead it's being siphoned off and put into artwork and valuables, assets, jewelry, precious metals, offshore, probably in Israel, to hide it from the IRS and the authorities. That's what's going on.